today, Democratic Roundtable. The boys are back in town. Chap Peterson, World International Headquarters, right in downtown city of Fairfax. Ben Tribbett has just come in. Senator Chap Peterson has come in. And we just heard from Mike Pence in that montage. And Mike Pence, I guess, talking about regime change in Venezuela again. Why can't these Republicans, they love to change regimes, running around with the CIA and change regimes and get involved in it. I mean, who cares what Venezuela does? Let them figure it out. We got our own problems here, like building roads and taking out statues. Ben, good to see you.
Good morning.
And Ben is here. Chap Peterson, Senator Peterson, great setup we have. I tried to help the acoustics a little bit. We'll see how it goes. You're looking dapper as always.
Thank you, sir.
And also joining us later on, staggering in from Krispy Kreme is going to be Senator Scott Servell. He's going to be here joining us. We understand David Marston is on the way. He doesn't get up as early as we do, but he's on the way. He's a little bit older, so we kind of give him that. And he's got to stumble out of bed and get here. And then we understand that losing a lieutenant governor candidate that I predicted would lose, Susan Platt, will be here, right? To crash the party. That's what I've understood.
Great.
Somebody invited her. Not me. Must have been Ben.
I invited a couple different women who were actually a little perturbed with us for our Six White Men show from a couple times ago, that we needed to have a little bit of diversity. So we might have some women come in here today.
Well, we've been doing this Six White Men show since 2015, like all of it, or 2013, 2012, I think, right? It's 5 years. All of a sudden, we have a diversity issue. But look, just because we happen to be male and white, what does that have to do with anything?
We'll let them speak for themselves.
Okay, well, look, it's good to have you guys here. So, Senator, and Ben Tribbett with us here. Here's the thing. I think I said this to you earlier, and I said it to my audience a few minutes ago. I think the grand irony in this political campaign is very simple. Ed Gillespie almost got defeated based on statues in the primary, and now I think he's going to win based on statues, and I think the Democrats have way overplayed their hand on this, the culmination of it being students at the University of Virginia, Chaps football team, get rid of an Asian football announcer on ESPN3, Robert Lee, because they don't like his name, so ESPN3 caves and takes him out of broadcasting UVA games. I mean, is this not just political correctness run amok, or what, Chap?
Well, it is. I think that's, in all the stupid things that have happened in the past 2 years, that Robert Lee thing is probably in the top 5, maybe even top 3.
Ever?
Yeah,
it's pretty high up there.
It's pretty high up there. I don't know. Obviously we can talk a lot about statues, the Confederacy, history, Robert E. Lee. I got to give you a little piece of breaking news. There's a memorial to the 17th Virginia Infantry, which is a Fairfax County regiment in Lee's Army, that's literally 200 yards away from here, in the Fairfax City Cemetery, where my father's buried, my mother's family's buried. And I actually went by there this morning just because I was going to check on it. Actually, I was going to measure it because I wanted to know if it would fit in a local museum, because I don't think it would. It's about 30 feet high. And it's actually, someone defaced it last night.
Oh, no.
So they spray painted all over it.
You should
and I just saw this.
That out.
Yeah, I am going to. And that's hard for me because that's a cemetery where my family's buried. I had ancestors that fought in this regiment. And so, this stuff's out of control. I guess, like I said, we can talk about it, but I was a little bit shocked to see that about 5 minutes ago.
So you just went there to check on it, and you find out that it's been defaced by vandals.
Basically, yeah.
And it's been there how long? I mean, it's forever.
It was actually put there in 1910, and I know that specifically because when it was erected, the President of the United States, who was Taft, actually came out for the ceremony, and they had this sort of blue-gray, brotherhood thing.
So it's been there for 170
years. Yeah, it's a historic marker.
Years, and it gets defaced now, and I'm telling you, this is why Ed Gillespie is going to win. Ralph Northam doubled and now tripled down on the statue thing, and a lot of people, our callers and many other people that I just talked to, Ben, I spent a week in upstate New York last week, And I talk to people because of the nature of my business. And I was in Cooperstown and Utica, and almost everybody I talked to was opposed to taking these monuments down. And these are people in New York State that have nothing to do with the Confederacy, the South, slavery, generals. They have nothing to do with any of it. It's just like they think it's crazy, and they don't like they don't like the history of the country being erased. And they also, what they told me is, they don't like people in Washington, Albany, or I guess for us, Richmond, telling them what to do. I think you guys are way overplaying your hand. I think you're going to lose.
I mean, I think that the whole issue is something that plays well for the Republicans only because their position's really simple and easy to understand. And for the Democrats, when you talk about these monuments and how you're going to handle them, it's complex and there's complicated history. And I think that it's very different when you talk about a monument to Jefferson Davis is different than a monument to Robert E. Lee, which is different than a monument to one of our founding fathers before the Civil War. There are some people that believe they're all the same, that we need to take down monuments for everyone who owned slaves, or fought to preserve that. That is a belief of one group of people. And then you have another group of people on the left who I think want to see the Confederate stuff from the Civil War come down. And then I think you have another group that might say, leave the monuments up, but, things like honoring Jefferson Davis, who was a politician, not someone who's in a war, is not appropriate, on a major roadway through Arlington County. And I do think that when people drive across from D.C. into Virginia for the first time, and I've heard this for years from people that are visiting here, that are always sort of shocked when that's the first thing they see is Jefferson Davis Highway. It's like
Jeff Davis Highway.
It's like an announcement, like, whoa, where did I just transform myself into, right? So each one of those issues is a little bit different, and when they all get conflated together, I think it's really, really complicated to talk about.
And I agree 100% with Ben. Like, I'm much less attached to Jefferson Davis. I mean, Robert E. Lee's a hero of mine,
right,
which probably disqualifies me from ever running for office again, but fine. Jefferson Davis, whatever. He was a frankly mediocre Confederate president that if he had been smart, he would have probably moved to free the slaves and made peace with the Union and, but he didn't do any of that stuff. But the bottom line is, it's the Democrats, unfortunately, who are trying to simplify this if they say, oh, let's take all the monuments down. Okay? And so, unfortunately, Democrats, many of whom are friends of mine, have tried to make this a campaign issue. And I agree with you, John. It's going to backfire. I mean, to me, I think at best, it could be one of these issues where each locality kind of has to decide what to do. Now, some of them, or a lot of them, are on state property, not to mention you have state laws about protecting historic monuments, just like you have state laws about protecting cemeteries. And defacing a grave, for example, is a felony in this state. So there's a lot of different issues. It's become a huge political football. Obviously, the president's, idiotic, shall we say, remarks in Charlottesville certainly threw gas on the fire.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you need to own that, John.
Yes.
I
agree.
So there's a lot to it. To me, I mean, I guess I look at it. I was born in this state. I grew up in this state. I had ancestors that fought for the Confederacy. Most of my mother's family, frankly, falls on the, quote, progressive side of the spectrum. However, having said that, they've never been ashamed of the fact that their ancestors, served with General Lee. It was something that, that's a choice people made.
Right.
And then they came back and reintegrated into the community and tried to make the best of it. And I just really, I have a personal problem with defacing graves or taking down statues that have been there for generations. I got a problem. I'm not going to support that. I'm not going to support it.
Well, I think too, when you talk about these statues, there's a history behind each statue. And I don't know that each situation is exactly the same. And, the statue that you're talking about this morning being defaced in a cemetery, and it has a historic background to, the President of the United States came for the unveiling, obviously well after the Civil War. There's a history there. There's some of these monuments are just Sears catalog $50 monuments that, were just there just to sort of send a message in the community that was a bad message.
Right.
And it could very well be monuments to the same person. It could all be Robert E. Lee monuments that have different meanings, different places. And I think that, is it a local issue? It sort of is. And then on the other hand, you look at Charlottesville and how badly the Charlottesville Council mangled the issue.
No doubt about that.
And then you look at and let's be honest, you look at the local governments around the state, and these are not the most competent group of people.
Right.
And you throw it to them all over the state to be like.
I agree with Ben. To some extent, if you leave it to the locals, it's going to become a freak show.
Right.
You're going to have protest. It's almost better in the General Assembly where, hey, you want to come down here and hate on us? Fine. That's what we're all about. That we say, look, you can take them down, you can't take them down.
Look, the fiasco in Charlottesville at the council meeting the other day was pretty ridiculous. But look, Ben, you're trying to intellectualize this, and I appreciate that. Your sober, cogent, concise analysis of what's going on. But you can't intellectualize it when the left takes it to the next extreme and starts knocking everything down, and now they want to blow up Mount Rushmore. They want to whitewash Stone Mountain. I mean, people look at this, they're like, oh, these people are crazy, they're nuts, and that's why Gillespie's going to win on this one issue.
Okay, I'm just going to say this, and this will probably offend you, John, but I even see the difference between Mount Rushmore and Stone Mountain. Okay, because one is actually a major historic place, and one is a place that is not. But in the realm of that discussion, you're conflating them together. They're two very, very different places.
Yeah, but average Americans don't see that. They're not going to intellectualize it the way you are. They're lumping it all in. For instance, I made this point earlier. Chap and I and you were all baseball fans, right? We love baseball. Sure. You guys root for the Nats. I root for the Astros. By the way, we beat you guys last night.
Oh, did y'all win last night?
6-1.
Okay.
So rubber game tonight. Great game. Keuchel, Strasburg. Great game.
Okay.
So I'm going to be watching that tonight. But, I mean, do you now go to baseball stadiums and you take down statues of ball players before Jackie Robinson that made the blacks play in the Negro League? Do you go to Pittsburgh, take down Honus Wagner? Do you go to Tiger Stadium, take down Ty Cobb? I mean, do you take down Walter Johnson?
This is a great discussion, though. I mean, the Red Sox right now are pushing to change the name of, is it Yawkey Way?
Yawkey Way, yeah.
Which was the last owner to integrate in Major League Baseball. And I actually saw, and Chap and I obviously were on the other side of this issue with the Redskins team name, but I saw an interesting release that went to Dan Snyder about this, from the Native American groups that were saying, they disagree with the team name, obviously, but they want to see the part of the stadium renamed that's for George Preston Marshall.
Right.
And George Preston Marshall was a horrendous owner of the team in terms of some of the things that he did.
Right.
And there probably shouldn't be a monument to George Preston Marshall.
But there's not at FedEx Field. It's at the old RFK.
No, I think there is. I think
he's on the Ring of Fame at FedEx Field.
I think there's actually an area in the stadium. I think there's actually something honoring him in the stadium.
I don't think so.
We have to look this up. I think there's something.
He's on the ring.
But either way, so that's a different discussion,
right?
And I think that's actually a much more legitimate discussion.
And that's a legitimate discussion, but also you got to recognize George Preston Marshall founded the Redskins. So I mean, if you were going to
but he also wanted the
name.
Redskins to be the Southern team.
No, listen, I get it. I mean, he was he had a lot of flaws.
We're back. The boys are back in town. Chap Peterson, Ben Tribbett, Dave Marston on his way, Scott Servo coming with Krispy Kreme donuts. Susan Platt crashing a party. Right back on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth.